Let's walk, let's go. Come on, let's go. Doing things a little bit differently for this vlog. I'm doing like a series. I'm not sure if it's going to be in sort of 2, 3 or 4 parts, but for part 1 I'm really going to go through scouting out a location for barn owl photography. Now there's lots of factors to consider. I think first of all, a lot of people have been asking me is, how do you find where barn owls are? Now a lot of the time it's great really if you're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, local people, just ask out on Facebook, has anybody seen a barn owl recently? And generally people are pretty forthcoming, private message you, give you the location, and then literally, as long as it's not on private land, go to that location, be quite patient. Owls are creatures of habit, but they do frequent the same sort of feeding areas. And then when you do, go and case it out and just see if any owls turn up over a period of the week. One thing to bear in mind with owls is that, you know, at this time of year in February, barn owls will generally come out at dusk, and they come out at dawn. So they're crepuscular birds. So those are the best times for them to hunt. Obviously, with that in mind, it's quite difficult to see sometimes. So just bear that in mind. But after a period of prolonged bad weather, wind or rain, barn owls will generally come out a little bit earlier than normal, because obviously they're hungry to find food as soon as they can. So that's always a great indication really after a spell of bad weather, is to get out a little bit later on, about sort of 4 o'clock-ish really, and case out your local area. And if it is on private farmland, you know, go and speak to the local farmer. Generally they're all pretty friendly, as long as it's in your locality, obviously with the current restrictions. And just ask him if you could, you know, take a walk on his land and maybe watch the barn owl and photograph them. You know, I've been quite successful. I've got a lot of friends locally, a lot of farmers and a lot of governing bodies that let me use the reserves and land. So that's another great thing. And then just sit, be patient and watch the owl. You know, you can log what time the owl comes out to hunt, work out some sort of pattern. This area I'm in today, which I'm going to show you what I've been doing, casing out this location, is particularly good. This area here is been planted for overwintering birdseed as part of the government stewardship scheme, and this has been planted here, and it's absolutely riddled with voles at the minute, and there's vole holes everywhere, and we'll go through some of those in a minute. And it's a really good field, and the barn owl comes and hunts in here quite regularly. So we'll go through various bits today just to say to see how I do things and how I would scout out a location for barn owl photography. Okay, habitat for barn owls. They generally like sort of tussocky, long grass, and they like field margins to hunt along. And especially they like feeding from posts. And in this field particularly, unfortunately, the hedges have overgrown and they've completely covered the posts, only exposing 2 or 3 posts. So what I've done is I've gone around with the farmer and I've put up just some normal fence posts, not the best photogenic posts for barn owls to sit on, but I've also put up some naturalistic posts, some old broken branches and stuff like that, round areas really where I see plenty of vole holes. Barn owls are great. They come in, they land on, they prefer, not lazy feeders, but they prefer to land on a post and hunt from the post. It reduces the amount of energy that they need to use, and anything that makes it easier for them is the better. So they'll sit on the post, keep themselves, you know, their eyes and ears open, and they'll literally pounce down off the post, pick up the vole, back up on the post again, and then just start all over again really. So that's a really good thing to do. But obviously make sure that if it's on private land or any government land or any nature reserves, that you obviously have a word with the wardens or the farmers or whatever first to make sure that they're happy for you to put up some posts. But that's something to bear in mind. So long sort of tussocky grassy areas, areas of not too overgrown with bramble, because obviously when the birds go in to get the prey, they need to have plenty of space for them to obviously pounce on that prey, secure it, and obviously carry it away if it needs to. But those are a couple of things to bear in mind. So as you can see at the minute, this is one of the posts I put up, and it's literally gone in about sort of 2 feet, and dug in there with a trowel, put some stones around it to give it some support, and that's fairly rigid. You know, a barn owl will be quite happy with that. And actually around on the ground here, I've positioned where there's loads and loads of vole holes. There's a few rabbit scrapes there, and there's quite a lot of little holes here, vole holes. And that's a great spot for that barn owl then, just to sit on the post, survey the area, and obviously hunt from here. Okay, walking down here. It's a beautiful day today. And it's good to position the posts obviously in line with the reach of your lens, and a nice position that there's no grass and stuff getting in the way. So obviously when you're training your lens on it, you're not picking up a load of foliage in front. So there's another post here I put up, which is pretty good. Quite a nice little perch there for the owl. And you also get like buzzard and kestrel in here as well. So, you know, anything could perch on here, and some smaller birds as well. So that's things to bear in mind. So the barn owl, especially here, hunts along these field margins. So it comes along this corridor here, hunts along the edge, comes in, picks up prey, goes and sits on the post, and I'm set up over here in the hedge line, and there I pick up some, hopefully some great shots of the owl. Now these posts have only been up about 4 days, so not very long at all. So it takes a bit of time for the birds to get used to the new posts, new perching points. But as you can see along here, inside the hedgerow here, all the posts along here, it's overgrown with bramble. Great for bird species, not so good for the owl. Yeah, it's a really good thing to do, really, if you're allowed to, that is, to put up these additional, more natural posts. Also, another good idea, if you can, and obviously if you've got permission, is also to put up some trail cams. Now, I was sitting in my position here, just in there. I've got a scrim net goes across. I'll go more into that in part 2 about the setup. But I was sat in there the other night. Literally, an owl came in and sat on that post, and I could see the owl eating the vole through the undergrowth there, and it flew in across the field, straight in here, on top of this post to feed. So now I've positioned, if you can see a trail cam there, and the owl comes in there quite frequently, and hopefully I'll be able to get a nice shot of the owl then eating the vole. Need to check the camera, but it's only been there for about 2 days, so it needs a bit of time. But that's the sort of things you can do if you've got permission. But this is the field itself, so it's a lot of wild flowers in here, as well as the birdseed mix. And in the spring, summer, it's absolutely a wash. Foxgloves, a lot of wildflowers. You get lots of linnet phlox in here. It's a really good prey source for any bird of prey. And the resident kestrel and buzzards, there's a magpie up there at the moment, use these trees here as surveying points as well. And they come in and hunt over here all day, and it's absolutely alive with voles. Really good spot. There's a neighbouring field over the other side there. This field's about 6 acres. Field over there is about 4, and there's another field at the very top, and that's another 6. So this is the area really that the barn owl loves to hunt in, because the adjacent fields at the moment are just basically grass for sheep and cattle. So these are really the fields that they like to hunt in. And my dogs absolutely love it in here. They can sniff the voles and all sorts in here. They're having a great time. See if we can find some holes here now. So these are kind of rabbit scrapes. Let's just try to find some decent holes. So here we have, there's one there, there's a little hole, and it's literally, these are littered all over the shop. Where I've positioned a lot of the posts, they're around about 3 or 4 holes. So it's a really good place to put them. It's yet to produce, obviously, with any barn owls as yet. They've actually not landed on those. But I'm really hoping, you know, this is one of the projects that I'm doing at the moment. And we'll go into a bit later on about where the barn owls are actually breeding. We're going to go and visit the farm, show you the box, and show you some sign and stuff like that they leave behind as an indicator that they're obviously actively roosting in the barn and actively nesting in the boxes as well. I've also got to stress that the barn owl is a Schedule 1 protected species in the UK, and so around the breeding season you can't really visit the nest site and photograph them and interrupt them. So, but you're quite well within your rights to photograph them when they're out hunting, feeding, etc. Just not as long as it's not around the nest site. So here's another post that the farmer and I put up. Now, granted, it's not a great photographic post for an owl to sit on, but it's not always about the shot on this post. This is put up for the birds, really, just to have somewhere to rest and hunt from. Dotting these around, it provides a great vantage point for lots of species. And sit on this post here, that's a pretty good visual there. In fact, I can see a buzzard right in that tree, keeping an eye on me. Yeah, that's a resident buzzard that I've not actually seen in here for a few days. He's quite tolerant of me. It's always a great indication that the kestrel is always up on this tree or this one here. Buzzard's going to take flight in a mow, especially if my dogs get near. But the kestrel loves it on here. There's loads of farmland bird species. There goes the buzzard. Off it goes. There's one thing to bear in mind as well is a bit of patience with trying to locate the barn owls. And if you go to a site for 2-3 days, and you don't see anything, and they've been seen in that area, they are likely to be there. They're just not there at that particular time. Barn owls in the breeding season tend to have a range from their breeding site of about 2.5 kilometres, and in the autumn and winter their range extends to about 5. So the chances are that if they've been seen in that area, they are going to be there. It's just a matter of patience, really. And I've been to this site and I've seen the barn owl here on 2 or 3 nights in a row, and I've been here the last 3 nights and I haven't seen it at all. So it could be hunting somewhere else, but if I end up going off to another site to see, or another field to see if I can see the owl, it'll probably come back in here. So it's a good idea just to stick to your guns, really. Work on one particular spot that they're hunting successfully. I mean, I've been here, I've seen the owl hunting pretty much at sunset, and I've seen the owl within 20 minutes take 3 short-tailed field voles. So the prey is here, the kestrels have been air hunting, the buzzards have been air hunting. I've even seen a heron taking voles as well. So it's absolutely jam-packed in here of vole activity. So they are going to be here. You get also mammal species in here as well. We've had fox in here also, obviously hunting. And there's rabbits in here as well, which is another prey source for some of the birds of prey. So, really stick to the spot and just, keep plugging at it, really. So this is the adjacent field to the birdseed where we've been and the barn owl hunts. Now, there is no field margins along here. The grass is here for the sheep and for cows. And this doesn't really provide any food source for the barn owl, buzzard or kestrel, really. There is no field margins. Obviously they can do a bit of post hunting. I suppose any voles do come out along this edge, but really it doesn't really provide an awful lot. There's no sufficient length of grass there, so you can pretty much rule these fields out apart from them transiting over the top. But they have got a good point here just to perch on. All the way along this field there are exposed posts, so really good for just observation or to digest their food, just have a bit of a rest. But your best bet really is to get into a field where you've got crop or wildflowers, anything like that will obviously disguise any voles and stuff that are living, hunting, feeding in those fields, because there's plenty of roughage and stuff for them to feed on. So just bear that in mind. It just cuts down your transit time looking on a field full of grass, because it doesn't really provide an awful lot. So now I'm currently at the barn owl's breeding site in my friend's farm, and I've got another trail cam up here which I've positioned on one of the fence posts that he seems to like to use. So I'm just going to check the camera now to see if we've got anything on there. So this camera's positioned there, and it likes to hop onto these posts. And I've got some footage also of a barn owl flying off the post down onto the ground just behind this tuft of grass here, and then it hunts all the way down this section here, down through the barns and back down to the fields. And it also sits on these posts along here, and it does that most nights. So it comes out of the barn and it always hops onto the posts, sort of gets familiar with its surroundings, makes sure it's safe, and then it heads off to hunt. And the fields that I was down in earlier on is basically, you've got a rather messy field there that's just had crop in it with a load of egrets over that side, and over the other side there, further down, is where the fields are that it generally hunts in. So, but they do that every night. They come out and they just stay in this little area, do a quick circuit around, and then they go off to hunt. So really, really good little spot. And we'll just check out the other box in a moment. Just need to check out the trail camera. So this is the site where I think they're actually breeding this year. Now my friends put a box inside the barn, and this is like a little L shape in here, so the hole goes into there and it goes into the barn and goes that way, so it stops all any wind and weather getting in. But this, I think the barn owls are going to breed in this one this year, and it's a really snug little box, and his barn's really, really warm in there, so I think that's where the barn owls are going to use this year. So I've seen them use this box probably 9 times out of 10 to come out at night, and I log the time when the barn owl comes out, so generally probably about 5 past 5, quarter past 5, and I sort of watch from a viewpoint over there. If you can see the gate, sort of tuck myself up there in my vehicle, or on foot, just sit there, wait, pair of bins, and just log the time it comes out, and then work out a pattern then, really, of the barn owl's habits. So really good thing to do, and I've got a little bit of footage, I'll be showing up on the screen now, of the barn owl actually exiting the box and entering the box, and just keeping that in mind, really, just working out that the barn owl's general pattern of behaviour, dependent on the weather, dependent on the wind. They've got the choice of this box, the other box, and they've also got the choice of the barns as well to roost in. But as the season progresses, then the barn owl will probably, especially the female, will be in the box for long periods of time, and the male will then roost away from the female, probably in one of the adjacent barns or boxes, depending on the weather. So that's the location where they are, and my house is literally just down those fields, so I just walk up across, job done, really easy, and nice and local, really, especially in these lockdown times, so it makes things nice and easy for me. But so that's the site it's at, and obviously a lot of the neighbouring fields here, surrounded by farmland, and there's a few seed fields at the top there as well, another sort of 4, 5, 6 acres up the top. And the rest of these are pretty much grassy fields for a lot of the cattle. And this is my friend's private little patch in here, who lives in a bungalow just down the way, but this is his little area in here. So the barn owl does come in along here sometimes and perches on these posts before going to hunt. So, but that's pretty much site location. And if you're allowed to get access to the farmer's land, you know, or somewhere like a wildlife trust or a nature reserve, national trust, etc., then that's sort of similar things, really. But that's the sort of thing we're looking for. That post there's got some regular bird poo on, so they regurgitate pellets, usually one a day, and that's undigested bones and fur, stuff that they don't actually need, and that's ejected through their mouth, and usually just drop it on the ground or inside the barn. Always a really good telltale sign. If they're really dried up, literally bony, nothing left to them, then obviously the site is generally not occupied. But if there's wet ones there, a couple of days old, then you know that the barn owls are obviously actively using that site. So this is one of the barns where the barn owl actually breeds and bred last year. can see there's quite a bit of sign there on the floor, a lot of poo. There's a few old pellets there. And there's the actual box just there. And it roosts in amongst these beams in here. But not in here at the moment because there's actually another location that they actually roost in, and they won't be in the box necessarily just yet because it's not actually in the breeding season, so they won't necessarily be in there. They also use the barns down there as well, but currently they're not in there at the moment. So guys, I hope that's helped a little bit really with the first part one of scouting the barn owl locations for photography, and then kind of in part two we'll go through the setup, so setting up a hide blind, a screen, anything like that using natural materials, and looking at best place to position yourself regarding the sun, because bearing in mind the barn owls come out at dusk and dawn, so you don't want to be shooting straight into the sun, so a good position there, position that's fairly sheltered if the wind's blowing. Sometimes barn owls will then still hunt when it's blowing with wind because they don't really like it because they're very, very lightweight. Plus they can't hear their prey that well, but they will hunt in areas that are quite sheltered, hence the position I've got myself in at the moment. And we'll go through that, giving yourself plenty of distance, clearing the foliage area in front of the posts, going some of the settings I use for low light, and loads of other little tips really, and that will cover that in part two. And then hopefully further down the line in part 3 or 4, we'll then actually go into a bit of a live session really, photographing and videoing some of the barn owl activity in these fields. But thanks for watching guys. Any comments, please leave them in the boxes below. Give us a like if you can. If you don't subscribe and you fancy giving my channel a go, please do. Just click that all important subscribe button in the bottom right of your screen and click that bell to be notified of any future vlogs coming your way. But yeah, thanks for watching guys. Stay safe and I'll see you all next time.
Mm-hmm.